Imagine waking up to the sound of cracking wood, echoing across your property, followed by a thunderous splash that shakes the ground. That's exactly how my morning started the day. Karen's illegal bridge finally gave up on pretending to be a structure and collapsed straight into my creek. I didn't know it yet, but this moment would set off a storm of blame. Lies, HOA threats, and a battle I never asked for. For weeks, I had watched Karen, our neighborhood's self-appointed guardian of proper aesthetics, drag lumber, metal scraps, and random construction materials across my boundary line. She claimed she was improving community walkability. In reality, she was building a crooked, unstable bridge directly over my creek, on my land, without permission, permits, or the slightest understanding of engineering. At first, I tried to stop her. I approached her politely. She ignored me. I warned her that the creek was protected water and that any structure needed approval. She laughed at me like I was the unreasonable one and told me, "I know the HOA president personally. You'll thank me later." Spoiler, I did not thank her later. Instead, I watched as she hammered boards at odd angles, dropped nails everywhere, and called her creation Karen's Community Connector. Every day, the bridge tilted just a little more. Every day I told her she needed to stop. Every day she waved me off like an annoying commercial she refused to mute. Then came the morning of the collapse. The bridge didn't just fall, it disintegrated. The support beams split like wet crackers. Planks snapped and shot into the water. The entire structure tilted sideways, slammed into a tree, and drifted half-submerged down the creek. It was a disaster. Property damage, environmental violation, safety hazard, all of it. And before I could even grab my phone to record the aftermath, Karen came storming out of her yard, pointing at me like she was casting a curse. "This is your fault," she screamed. "You sabotaged my bridge!" I stood there speechless. She was genuinely convinced her illegal, collapsing death trap failed because of me, not because it was built with the structural integrity of a cardboard box in a rainstorm. But that accusation, that single outrageous moment, was only the beginning. Because Karen wasn't just going to blame me. She was going to try to make the HOA punish me. She was going to call the county, and she was going to escalate this into a war I never intended to fight. Little did I know, the collapse would trigger investigations, expose hidden grudges, and reveal just how far Karen was willing to go to protect her pride, even if it meant rewriting reality itself from start to finish. The moment Karen's collapsed bridge settled into the creek like a soggy, defeated pile of junk, she shifted fully into attack mode. Not reflection, not responsibility, not even embarrassment. No. Karen's instinct was to rewrite the entire situation, so she could come out looking like the tragic hero of her own disaster. Within minutes, she was marching up and down the property line, phone in hand, snapping photos like she was documenting a crime scene for a detective show. The only problem? In her version, I was the criminal. "You think you can just destroy community property?" she shouted at me while zooming dramatically on broken planks she had put there herself. "The HOA will take action against you. Trust me. Community property." That phrase nearly made me laugh. The bridge had never been approved, never been discussed, never even been acknowledged by anyone except Karen. She had single-handedly dragged her backyard into my land like a construction-themed invasion. But Karen wasn't finished. She dialed the HOA president with the speed of someone calling emergency services. I could hear her voice from across the yard, loud, theatrical, dripping with outrage. "Yes, it collapsed. He sabotaged it. He hates the HOA! You need to fine him. No, you need to take serious action." She paced in circles as she spoke, kicking bits of debris into the water to make the scene look worse. At one point, she even tried to nudge a piece of lumber toward my side of the creek with her foot. Luckily, I recorded everything. When she finally ended the call, she marched straight toward me with the confidence of someone who thought she had just won a legal battle. "They're sending someone," she said smugly. "And when they see what you did, you'll be paying for the repairs and the replacement." "Karen," I said calmly, "the bridge wasn't legal. It wasn't safe, and it wasn't on your property. You're not allowed to build here." Her face twitched into a smile, a tight, unsettling one. "I have friends on the board. They know I don't lie." I could only stare at her. The level of delusion was impressive, almost artistic. But then something happened that even I didn't expect. A county vehicle rolled up. Not HOA, not a neighbor. The county. Someone, maybe a passerby, maybe a fed-up resident, maybe fate itself, had reported the collapse. And the county inspector stepping out of that truck was about to ruin Karen's entire storyline. Karen's confidence evaporated instantly. This was no longer her narrative to control. The county inspector stepped out of the truck with a clipboard tucked under his arm, and the kind of expression that said, He'd seen every possible flavor of neighborhood chaos, but even he paused when he saw the half-sunken remains of Karen's community connector, drifting crookedly in my creek. The moment his eyes locked onto the collapsed mess, Karen rushed to him like a contestant sprinting toward a game show buzzer. Finally, someone responsible, she cried, waving her arms dramatically. He destroyed my bridge! It was perfectly fine yesterday, and then he sabotaged it. The inspector didn't respond immediately. He just looked at her, then at the creek, then back at his clipboard. Ma'am, he began. Was this structure permitted? Karen blinked. Permitted? Why would I need a permit for something this small? It's just a simple bridge. Everyone builds wooden features in their yards. The inspector's eyebrows lifted slowly, like they were rising out of disbelief. This creek is classified as protected water. Any structure over or across it requires engineering approval, environmental clearance, and property verification. Karen's confident smile cracked. Well, I mean, the HOA knows about it. Did they approve it? He asked. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again, and finally muttered, they were going to. Eventually. Meanwhile, I stood quietly, letting reality do the work. The inspector shifted his attention to me. Are you the property owner here? Yes, I said, and she built it without permission. I warned her multiple times. I have recordings, Karen shouted, as if that helped her case. Except she didn't. I did. The inspector nodded slowly, taking notes. All right, I'll need to document the collapse, assess environmental impact, and determine if any violations occurred. Violations? Karen gasped. Against him, right? He shook his head. Against whoever built the structure. Karen froze, completely motionless, like a video buffering at the worst possible moment. The inspector walked closer to the creek, snapping photos, measuring distances, and muttering things like unstable load-bearing angle and improper anchoring. Each technical term was another nail in the coffin of Karen's fantasy. Finally, he turned to her and said the sentence that made her soul leave her body. Ma'am, this entire bridge was illegal. Karen's jaw dropped so far it nearly hit one of the floating planks. And, he added, flipping a page, if it caused environmental disturbance, you could face fines. Her face drained of color instantly, as if someone pulled the plug on her confidence. She tried to speak, but only managed a squeaking sound that barely counted as a word. For once, Karen had absolutely nothing to say because now the truth was officially documented, undeniable, and in writing. Karen stood frozen as the county inspector finished his notes. And for the first time since this whole mess started, the world finally felt balanced. The truth was no longer trapped under Karen's dramatic storytelling. It was out in the open, clear and official. But what happened next made everything even more unbelievable. The inspector took a few final photos of the collapsed structure, then turned to both of us. All right, I'll be filing a report. Based on what I'm seeing, there are several violations here. Construction without permits, disturbance of protected water, and encroachment onto neighboring property. Karen sputtered. But this isn't fair! He's the one who ruined it. The inspector didn't even flinch. Ma'am, the structure failed because it was improperly built. There's no evidence of sabotage. However, there is clear evidence of unauthorized construction. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. Karen crossed her arms and tried to glare at the creek like it betrayed her. So, what happens now? The inspector drew in a breath, the kind people take before dropping a heavy truth. You'll receive a notice. There may be fines, environmental remediation orders, and a requirement to remove all remaining debris. Remove! Karen shrieked. You mean, I have to clean that up? Yes, he said calmly, because it's your responsibility. Those words shattered whatever hope she had left. She looked at the creek, then at me, then at the inspector, searching for any loophole, any angle, any person to blame next. But there wasn't anyone left. The world had finally stopped enabling her. When the inspector left, Karen lingered by the property line, staring at the destroyed bridge like it was a fallen soldier. Slowly, she turned toward me. This isn't over, she muttered, though her voice lacked its usual fire. The HOA won't let this stand. But even that threat felt hollow. Because later that week, the HOA did respond. Just not the way Karen hoped. They sent her a violation notice. They fined her for unauthorized construction, and they ordered her to follow the county's cleanup guidelines immediately. By the time the county's official report was finalized, Karen was facing several fines she had absolutely not budgeted for. And as she scraped waterlogged planks out of my creek under the inspector's supervision a few days later, she shot me a look that was equal parts fury, embarrassment, and disbelief. All I did was stand on my land, the land she tried to commandeer, and watch justice do its quiet work. In the end, Karen didn't just lose a bridge. She lost the narrative, the backing, and the control she thought she always had. And honestly, the creek never looked more peaceful. Can you believe what Karen did this time? Tell me in the comments what you would do if this happened to your property. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more crazy HOA stories, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a wild neighborhood showdown.